This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and today we're going to do a comparison Smackdown between the only two 3200 by 1800 QHD Plus display laptops on the market, or Ultrabooks. We have the Samsung ATIV Book 9 Plus on top and the Lenovo Yoga 2 Pro on the bottom, and we're going to look at them now. So here we have two Windows 8 or 8.1 as the case may be. They're both shipping with 8.1 at this point. Ultrabooks with Intel Haswell 4th generation Core i5 and i7 CPUs. Both are at $1,000. So how do you decide between the two of these? Well, these are for those of you who are looking for that super duper high resolution display that really appeals to you. 3200 by 1800 pixels in 13.3 inches. Both displays are made by Samsung. They are the same display panel, but it's interesting how software and power management can change the displays a little bit in terms of how they look to you. First off, both of these have extremely long product names. Too many words, I think, but on top, the Samsung ATIV Book 9 Plus. The ATIV Book line sounds sort of like something you would take for constipation, but that's what Samsung calls all of their laptops these days, and they have a variety of numbers. 9 is the highest line. It's their luxury line item, so this one's going to be costing more money. Now, Samsung did make that a little more confusing when they had the ATIV Book 9 Lite, which is a cheap Samsung Series 9. So other than that, a little confusion. Anyway, this is the high-line product. Starts at $13.99 US, so it's not cheap for your Core i5, 4 gigs of RAM, 128 gig SSD model. On the bottom here, we have the new Lenovo Yoga 2 Pro, or Lenovo IdeaPad Yoga 2 Pro. Is that enough words for you? It's not just a Yoga 2, it's a Yoga 2 and it's a Pro. So this is the newer, better version of the popular IdeaPad Yoga 13, and it adds a couple of things like a backlit keyboard to the equation, updated Haswell CPUs from the Yoga 13 model. This is exclusive to Best Buy in the US. You can also get this on Lenovo's website, but generally speaking, Lenovo's website is more expensive than buying it from Best Buy. $9.99 at Best Buy for the Core i5, 4 gigs of RAM, 128 gig SSD. And if you want the i7, there's the i7 with 8 gigs of RAM and a 256 gig SSD. And at Best Buy, that one is going to set you back $1,200 to $1,300. On Lenovo's website, the 8 gig configuration comes and goes. It gets a little more confusing, but generally speaking, it's a little bit more expensive there. Still, that's cheap compared to our Samsung. It took a while, but Samsung did finally come out with the Core i7, 8 gigs, 256 gig SSD configuration, and that's a mind-numbing $17.99. Personally, if I was going to get the Samsung, this is just me, I would go with the Core i5 because the price isn't quite as shocking there, but I know some of you want more RAM, need more RAM, or want more internal storage, so that's up to you. Different value propositions here. The Yoga is part of the IdeaPad line. The IdeaPad line for Lenovo is their consumer line. The ThinkPad line is for business, and it has a lot of the higher end, more robust business-like killer casing kind of features, but still, the Yoga is kind of at the higher end of the IdeaPad line. Again, with the Samsung Series 9, you're talking about the best that Samsung can make. Part of the difference for the pricing there. In terms of styling and materials, the Lenovo is kind of boring looking. Sorry, I had to say it though. You have your silver painted finish here, and there's also available a clementine orange, which I think is really cool, but they killed off their book design, so now we have a tapered design. You still have the contrasting black to give you a little bit of visual interest there, but there it is. Now, interestingly, this feels like plastic. If you press on it, it flexes, but Lenovo says this is actually a composite of aluminum and magnesium, which has a UV soft touch paint finish on, so a plastic paint finish applied on the top of it. It doesn't really, you don't pick it up and say, wow, this is like a MacBook Air. It feels like a rigid piece of metal, though. Much the same for the bottom side. Bottom panel is removable, a bunch of Torx screws here, and you can take off your bottom panel. And if we look at our Samsung, you can see the styling difference. It's real obvious. I mean, this is designed to create lust in your heart. It's gorgeous. It's sculpted. It feels, if you like the MacBook Air, it feels a lot like that. Incredibly rigid. There's no flex. You can't flex this with this. You can cut a cake with this. It's sharp. It's beautiful. Nice contrasting lines. The sculpted sides over here. All metal casing, mostly aluminum here. Looks like it. You know, the polished metal sides on it. So this is meant for those of you who want something that looks nice, feels expensive, feels classy. So there it is. Do you want that experience, or do you want the most bang for your buck? You do get a couple of other features, though, for your money here. We have two USB 3.0 ports on this. Still have micro HDMI. we have Ethernet in here. It comes in the form of a dongle adapter in the box. And that dongle plugs into a proprietary port, so you're not using up a USB port on there. So that's pretty nice for business users. And again, that little adapter comes in the box. There's our other USB 3.0 port right there. If we take a look at our Yoga, if you want Ethernet on the Yoga, you're going to have to use a USB Ethernet adapter and use up one of those ports. For USB ports, we have one USB 2.0 port on the other side, and we have a USB 3.0 port over here. Also micro HDMI on this. Of course, they both have combo headphone jacks on them. They both have SD card slots. Now we open them up and we look inside. Again, you got the same display panel on both of these. And you have backlit keyboards on both of these guys. The Samsung has this really neat aqua blue that lights up automatically and does a good job. It's not one of those flaky ambient light sensors that kind of drives you crazy. It does a great job. Beautiful looking. The Lenovo has your basic white backlight. You get a little bit more key travel on the Lenovo, but I actually like the typing experience a little bit better on the Samsung. You could call it a little bit more punishing. There's not a whole lot of key travel there, but I find that my error rate is actually lower on the Samsung, and I like it a little bit more than the Lenovo keyboard, which isn't quite up there with the ThinkPad keyboards, but it's not bad. Both of these have large glass trackpads. Again, I like the Samsung one a little bit better. The surface is kind of slick. That's not my favorite thing. I like a little bit of resistance here, but about as good as a Mac when it comes to being responsive, not doing anything wrong, supporting pinch zooming and multi-touch gestures. Lenovo's is pretty good, but in a way I think they hold back a little bit and they want you to get a ThinkPad for the ultimate in trackpad experience. And to see the difference in key relief, and also to show you what this does right here, here's our key relief. It's pretty low. Granted, the keys are sunk down a little bit in the bezel area surrounding over here, but you get the idea. Some movement, not a lot. Now, here's an important thing. Do you want a convertible or do you want a traditional laptop? The Samsung can do this. It can go completely flat, and that's as far as it goes. So among laptops, that's more versatile than usual, but obviously it's not going to do any special tricks. The Yoga is named the Yoga for a reason. As we know, it does the 360-degree hinge thing. So first, while we're looking at our key travel, this keyboard is actually set even lower in the surround. By the way, this is a rubbery soft touch finish here. Not as much travel as the Yoga 13 had. And for bending and flipping, obviously it does the flat thing, it does the tent thing, it does the presentation if you want to set it up like that, and it does the tablet thing. Cool. So for those of you who want a convertible kind of experience, obviously the Yoga is going to be the better pick for you. For those of you who find this part annoying, your hands are going to be against these keys. These keys do move, but they are disabled, so is the trackpad, so it'll never input anything when you have this in tablet or in presentation mode, but that's one thing that you're going to have to deal with here. In terms of performance, you're looking at the same thing here. Core i5, Core i7, 4th generation Intel Haswell options. They benchmark pretty similarly. The difference is going to be the software load just a little bit, but neither of these is bloated down, and both of these actually have a very nice software update function. With the Samsung, you can't go to their website to download drivers. They have an application on the Samsung, but you can actually use that to download and archive any drivers that you want also. So equal footing. Both of these have their RAM soldered on, so you have to order it with the amount of RAM that you want. You can't upgrade it after the fact. Both of these have SSD drives, but they use newer style connectors, and you're probably going to have some trouble finding to them. NGFF style connector on our ThinkPad Yoga, M2 style connector. Both are using SATA 3 style connections, not PCIe, so both are upgradable, but the trouble is trying to find one of those drives right now. They do both have socketed wireless cards. And when we get to wireless, there's another thing that's getting different for your money. Both of these have Bluetooth 4.0. They both have Intel, Bluetooth, and Wi-Fi. The Yoga is single band, 2.4 gigahertz only. We have dual band on the Samsung. Both of these have very strong Wi-Fi, by the way. Dual band is always nicer to have, and I know some schools, colleges at this point are even making it mandatory. You'll notice that if you're doing something like using a Bluetooth mouse or Bluetooth speakers, both of those will be on the 2.4 gigahertz band then, your Bluetooth and your Wi-Fi, and you may have interference, either Wi-Fi dropouts or dropouts in your audio and your speakers, or your mouse sometimes skipping a beat, that kind of thing. That's why it's good to have dual band Wi-Fi. Now, if you're one of those adventurous techie types, you can find a whitelisted Wi-Fi card, since Lenovo BIOS limits the number of wireless cards you can use, but you can go hunting for a dual band card and see if you can find something that's approved to throw in there. In terms of weight, both of these guys weigh 3 pounds, and though the Samsung might look a whole lot thinner because they're fooling you here with this very stylish thin design, you're still looking at something that's about a half an inch thick. So as I put them together, you can see that the Lenovo in tablet mode actually comes out a little bit thicker than it does in laptop mode. So I'll show you both ways, but a little bit thicker, really not a whole lot. And if we put it back into normal laptop mode, now the difference is even less. So despite the fact that the Samsung looks super duper much thinner than anything you've ever seen except for maybe a MacBook Air, they're pretty darn close. Alright, how about the displays? Yes, they're both Samsung made panels. They both use the same technology. They're the same part number. They should in theory be the same. Now I know those of you who heard about the Yoga 2 Pro heard about the whole yellow issue, which Lenovo fixed with a firmware update, or improved upon I should say. Yellows with this particular panel look kind of mustard. That's for power saving reasons. These kind of displays use a whole lot of power. Apparently driving the yellows uses a lot of power. So the Lenovo look distinctively even more mustardy than the Samsung. Both of these are not plugged into the power adapter right now. And we have our Lenovo Yoga 2 Pro with that firmware update that makes the yellows look more tolerable, and in fact they now pretty much match the Samsung. If you look at the back of the Nokia Lumia here, which should be a lemon yellow, you can see that's not really quite lemon yellow, is it? Likewise with the Best Buy colors here, most of you, at least in the US, know their branding. It's a kind of normal yellow, shall I say, on blue, and it still looks a bit mustardy here on our Samsung. And if we look over at the Lenovo, you'll see the same thing. So Lenovo's update basically got it up to where Samsung was out of the gate. And I think a lot of people won't even notice unless you're looking at something like SpongeBob, where you really know what he's supposed to look like. So there's our yellow big, there's our yellow big. Now the interesting thing is, if you plug in the power adapter in the Samsung, you get absolute perfect normal color gamut. If you plug in the Lenovo, you don't get any improvement in the yellows. And that obviously is driven by the firmware, the energy management. So Lenovo could choose to change that if they wished. And now we've plugged in both of these into their respective AC adapters, and you can see how the Samsung has changed. Now your yellow is beautiful, it's spot on, it's the yellow that it should be. And the Lenovo hasn't changed. And even when we fiddle with energy manager settings, it still hadn't changed. And auto brightness is turned off on both of these, by the way. So for those of you who are color purists, you work in professional image and video manipulation, and you just might be the target audience for these, because these have very wide color gamut, 95% of sRGB. So they're some of the more color accurate displays you're going to get, well, at least when they're plugged in. With the Samsung, if you plug it in, you'll get your yellows as they should be. With Lenovo, not so much. Now, if you're not a color professional, you probably don't care that much about this, but for those of you who are, or who are picky about your colors, there it is. Lastly, how about battery life? Very similar hardware, right? They actually have fairly similar capacity batteries in them, but again, this has to do probably with power management and driving the display and some other things, and this is probably one of the reasons why Lenovo wanted to really be more aggressive with their display power management at first, because it has shorter run times. With the Yoga 2 Pro, I've been averaging about 6 hours on a charge. That's with the default balanced energy settings. With my Samsung, the T-Book 9 Plus, generally speaking, 7 to 8 hours. So it does run longer. Samsung may have the advantage there. They make the laptop, they make the panel, they know all the tricks to get all the battery life out of it. So there it is. In the end, what are you paying for? With the Samsung, you're going to get your dual band Wi-Fi. You're going to get 2 USB 3.0 ports. You're going to get Ethernet via proprietary adapter in the box. You're going to get, obviously, a more high-class, more high-styled look to the computer. What do you get with the Yoga? You get a lot of value for your money. Honestly, for $9.99, boy, you get a super duper high resolution display. You get the same Core i5 CPU and i7 options as Samsung, the SSD drive, all that kind of thing. So a lot of value here. Certainly the least expensive 3200 by 1800 resolution 13.3-inch Ultrabook you're going to find on the market, and you get the Yoga feature where it bends over backwards. So there you have it, 2 very lovely Ultrabooks, both with extremely high resolution displays, wide color gamut, pretty bright also. 4th generation Intel Haswell inside. What sets them apart? You've seen. It's the styling, it's the classy looks of the Samsung versus just the values for the money on the Lenovo Yoga 2 Pro. Of course, you get a couple of extra creature comforts with the Samsung too, but is it worth the extra money? Only you know. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Be sure to visit our website for the reviews of both of these products and hit that like button.